for the introduction. I appreciate it. And I do want to just take a second to let you all know that if you scan the QR codes in the flyer that you got, that's where your evaluations could be. So don't hesitate to give me all fives. And then don't hesitate to rate Phyllis, of course, who's do speaking after me, and then Melanie, who just spoke to you all this morning. Let's take a second to recognize the Connecticut AORN chapter. Whenever a question sits on a directions, I can tell you it is very difficult to get people to want to have regional conferences in Connecticut because, you know, Connecticut's not cheap to have a conference, and just speaking from a very logistic area, and Boston's not any cheaper, and who wants to stay in New York unless you're going, I mean, I'm just saying. So it's very hard to get a conference regional in the New England area. So again, excellent feat. I'm really excited to be a part of the first one. And I do want to thank all of you today, because speaking to professionals outside of my immediate professional scope has been something that I've been working towards professionally for a very long time. I am personally not a nurse, and kudos to you guys because wow. Yeah. So although I do have a bunch of letters after my name, they pretty much just mean I'm a CSS nerd. I love to talk about sterile processing 24/7, 365, except for like on Saturdays when my husband's like, okay, chill out. Just can we just pick out what's for dinner and not talk about no. And honestly, I'm just tired of the way we've always done it. My full-time position gives me an excellent outlet to create curriculum and education programs that really challenge the status quo and really take that different approach and application and relearning what we've always done. I am an industry writer, a freelance writer, a speaker, motivational speaker. I am the president of the Connecticut Sterile Processing chapter, and it's been my pleasure to work in a facility where Leah and Cassie and Cassandra both are, and not to mention a bunch of my Hartford healthcare colleagues that are here today too. With all that being said, all the opinions and views expressed are of me, Sarah B. Cruz. If you don't like them, that's cool. Just take them right out, all right? Leave them right out in that back hallway with your circulating drinks. No, just kidding. And I don't represent any of the companies that I work for or associate with. So if I resonate with you, cool, let's hang out afterwards. And if I don't, really, no sweat. Today, we are going to talk about professional development. Insert eye roll here. So when we talk about professional development, everybody's like, you just got to get back up on your horse. You just got to keep going, right? That's it. We know. Don't tell me to just keep at it. I know, but sometimes I just want to sit every now and then, right? And that's because every day is a long time. You know, and Melanie said it the best, where it's like, if you're not learning, you're dead. But yeah, yo, the only time you're going to lay down when you're dead, like sit down and take a freaking breather, right? And I know it's hard for nurses because you guys hold your pee, you don't drink enough water, you guys are always running everywhere, and especially the carry-out ones where everything is unsterile, right? Substerile, no water. We got a place at the Bone and Joint Institute I call the fish bowl. That's where the scheduling and the booking happen, and you can see it from all sides. Sometimes there's water and there's not good. That's don't ever get. So I want to encourage all of you to not just think about professional development, but think about it in a way that actually works for you. We're going to do that through these three objectives. We'll look at how we feel discouraged in our professional progress. That's why we roll our eyes and think we're like professionals, right? And then we'll discuss intrinsic and extrinsic motivational opportunities and setbacks. Sometimes it's not just about getting back on your horse, right? Sometimes it's about, I have a lot of things going on, I just can't focus on my career right now. Like, it's like me. And then we're going to compose effective motivational objectives. And in English, all this means is I'm going to teach you the how, right? I'm going to teach you the why, the foundations, and then you're going to leave with actionable steps today. Because philosophy is cool, don't get me wrong, but you got to tell me how to do it, show me how to get it done, and if there's a group of professionals that get it, it's very operative. So then my sterile processing colleagues that are here, right? I get to know you all, have you ever wanted to quit your healthcare job? Wait a minute, wait. Back up. Hang on a second. Did we all not go through COVID? How do you guys not want to play? I'm not too I wasn't even in the operating room, so to speak, and I barely made it through COVID with all the material changing and everything like that. And that's a natural thing. And I like to start with that because we've all been there, right? It's important to recognize that we are not alone in this professional development journey. Like I said, you all are a huge part of my, literally helping me achieve a goal that I have been working on for years. Thank you. Truly. That means a lot to me. But dang, dude, sometimes the job we love, I want to quit it, okay? You can love what you do and not like it every day, folks, okay? Now, when you start to not like it for 4, 5, 6 months, that's what we're going to talk about today. So when you're in that point where you truly love what you do, are done doing what you do, take some actual steps to move out of that space and re-engage, reinvigorate your involvement in the job that you guys chose. How long do nurses go to school? Just your standard nurses, right? 4 years, yeah. Right? And then we got the fancy, like the CNORs, is that another 2 years, right? 3 years, 2 years. Listen, you can't tell me professionals go to school that long to just be like, nah, and like, yeah, we'll just no, all right, so you guys joined the profession for a reason. I want to help you guys engage. All right, there's me. I'm exhausted. All right, so I want to tell you all my I almost quit story. Got a whole bunch of them. I put 2 hands up, right? Okay, so my favorite I almost quit story is I was working in a community-based hospital and there was a educator position open. I applied for the educator position and I did not get that job. That job is still not filled today. So when I applied for that position, they didn't fill the position and then it stayed open for 6 months. I was so angry. How many times has that happened, right? Like, listen, I'm not trying to tell the hiring manager they should or shouldn't do. And frankly, the person I was when I applied for that job, I wouldn't hire me either. Okay, so I like to pace back and forth so you will get a silhouette every now and then. Okay, but I was so discouraged. Now listen, I didn't just up and quit, slam my stuff down. I respectfully gave my notice. I moved on to other places that saw me as the professional I wanted to become, not the professional they already knew me as. Okay, but the reason why I share that story is because we're all in the same space. I don't have any RN, that's the RN. But everybody has an I quit story. Think of your I quit story right now. Well, this presentation, just one. You guys can only use one. Okay. And as I discuss this presentation, let's really gain that insight on why was I in that position? Why was I so frustrated, stuck, and stagnant? So typically what happens when you start your job, right, is you go through, you get hired. That's a process in itself, right? What's up, managers in HR? If we turn around, what is going on? Get the job offer out there, okay? No. And then you have orientation and onboarding. Remember, orientation and onboarding are not the same thing. Orientation is when you sit with a bunch of individuals, learn about 401ks, and you're not remembering anything about 401ks. And then you go into onboarding. And that's where you actually get into where you're going to work and you're going to learn the cadence. Keep counting how many times I say cadence. That's probably one of my favorite words. You learn your cadence or how you're going to proceed in your standard work, your job responsibilities, and then you're actually starting to get to know the team that you work with. The next phase is you start to learn your foundational skills, right? Like, we all know that what we do in school is not necessarily how it's done out in the field. It's not that it's wrong, it's just, remember, in school we're learning the why we do what we do. And then when we're in the field with our externships or our onboarding, we're learning how we're going to carry out all of our curriculum, right? Sometimes that's a stark reality. A lot of people like the idea of being a sterile processing professional until they have to get into decon. Got a lot of sterile processing professionals that love the job but hate decon. They don't want to be ever but you gotta go do it. And it's the same thing with nursing, right? Who has a favorite? Okay, whose favorite surgery is ortho? I love orthos, y'all. Listen, I love ortho surgeries. Give me a cutting block any day. I know exactly where to look for all the bone that's left there. Because like pre-treating aside, there's going to be bone, no matter what, it's ortho. What about neuro? Like neurospine? Yeah? Oh, okay. So you're not afraid of a ronger? Yes. I am afraid of a ronger. Okay, nice. And then how about cardiac? Does anybody work with the hearts? Yeah. Those instrument sets are dense. They're like 180 instruments in them, and you guys use every single one. It's not like when the vendor reps come in. Listen, I love the vendors. Remember to go to your vendor show, but it's not like when the vendors come in with 18 trays and you guys use 2 of them for ortho. Okay. Right. So in this space, you're learning. You're becoming independent. You're creating competencies, and if we've got any other OR nerds out here, everybody loves a good competency. Remember, it's not a checklist, it's an accurate description of can you do what's expected of you in a way that serves patient safety. And in between your phase of becoming independent, doing your competencies, start to settle, right? Get into it, right? A vibe, I don't know what the kids say. I'm like the worst millennial that this, okay? Like the only reason why my stuff from high school isn't on social media is because MySpace got deleted. So you start to settle and you start to get a routine and you start to get favorites. Now there's nothing wrong with that. But the dangers of having favorites and being in a routine is when you start to feel stuck, stagnant, or frustrated. This is my cool little orange triple bin diagram. It took me 2 hours to make on PowerPoint. Right? So this space right here, that's where you can fall. So now the reason why professionals start to disengage with their professional aspiration is because they're stuck, stagnant, or frustrated, which can be enabled by being in a routine. And what happens when we get into routines? Expectations, right? This is how I do it. How many of us have said that? Come on, it's cool. Yeah, okay. See, I got to pick you up. Morgan, right? What's your name? Pardon? What's your name? Thank you, Maureen. Honest assessments are very important in this presentation. So when we are challenging the way we've always done it, we are actively saying, I may not have all the answers. And for a profession that's must have all, listen, I'll ask you guys a question before I ask you guys. Okay, so you guys got a lot of the answers that I need. But you sit in this space of stuck, stagnant, and frustrated because we fall into routines, because we have favorites. The very things we like most about our jobs could be our undoing. So now, if you ever start to feel stuck, stagnant, and frustrated, you're like, Sarah, those are all, they all mean the same thing, right? So it's not. When you are stuck, it means you want to try, but you don't know how to get the results, right? How many of us have tried something and we don't get the results we wanted, so we stop? What's up to every single New Year's resolution? Right? And then we have stagnant. Stagnant means you want to, but you don't know how. You have all the makings to be the CNOR, but you don't know how to enroll in the school. You don't know how you're going to afford it, right? So there's a difference there. And the byproduct of being stuck and frustrated, stuck and stagnant is frustrated. It's the just before I give up, all right? Now, a lot of the times people can stomp. They're very physically expressive when they're frustrated. I have an office for that, sorry, office mate. Often sees me very frustrated, and then I open up the door and I'm like, okay, let's think on the day, right? But frustrated is just before the I give up. And I don't know how many of you all have heard the phrase, don't quit miracle. I don't believe in miracles though, all right? Hope is not strategy, folks, all right? You don't have to hope things will work out for you when you're stuck. Hope is a great motivator. Let it be the thing that pushes or helps you pick out what you want. But please allow strategy and active engagement with your professional development to be the thing that makes you unstagnant. Be the thing that propels you forward. We're going to build that strategy plan today. Because when you're stuck, stagnant, and frustrated, a lot of the times the first places you start to see and feel the effects or imposter syndrome, dare I say, is in your self-confidence and your self-esteem. Again, not the same thing, right? You can have the most confident person in the world go home and think they are not that great, right? You can have the person of highest self-esteem that never speaks up because they're not sure of the sound of their own voice amongst their colleagues. Yeah. And then listen, sometimes in the OR, it's just best not to talk, isn't that right? Your head down, you can do whatever you want, you can always say it. Okay. Okay. So, because self-confidence is the trust in one's abilities, qualities, and judgments. Okay, self-confidence is really us valuing that, our foundational practices, all the things that have gotten us into how we've always done it. Whereas self-esteem is the trust in one's worth and or values. Self. Okay, so a lot of the times confidence is reflected in a task. I have confidence because I can see the direct output of my self-worth in a task. So when you are stuck, stagnant, and frustrated because you do the same thing every single time, and you're not actively engaged with what you're doing anymore or any longer, that's what self-esteem takes. Because confidence says, I know what I'm doing. And courage says, I am unsure, but I will try it. So what I'm asking from all of you today is to step into this courageous module with, right? Go down this path, because a path only becomes a path when you continuously go down it. Let's leave that gateway, okay? Let's be unsure, but be willing to try. In order to do that, you have to have self-awareness, which is why I shouted out Maureen, because when I said how many people have said this is how we've always done it, ooh, I never seen a hand go up so fast. Ooh, it was like someone was bringing in for Jeopardy. I would get every question wrong with Jeopardy. Okay, so just, I will bring it in. That's that confidence, right? So, self-awareness is crucial as we start to move into this stuck, stagnant, frustrated, reinvigorating our professional development. Now, there is a misconception that you have to be ready to quit in order to re-engage with your professional development. No, it's just if you're going through the motions and you haven't learned anything, or you haven't done something very different, or maybe you're waking up and you're like, you don't have to, what you do, okay? Not every reaction is because of something negative. So I want to help you all have the indications to identify when you might be starting to fall into the stuck, stagnant, frustrated before it happens, okay? So you have to do that through self-awareness, the awareness of one's personality and individuality. I started this presentation with, I am slightly obnoxious. Yeah, right. Is it me or is it the coffee? Give it to you. I don't know. But being self-aware is crucial. We have to be able to call out these things that serve us and don't serve us. A lot of the times we start to work on development and people are like, this is the list of everything I do wrong. It looks like a CVS receipt. Right? You know they offer digital receipts now at CVS? Yeah. That made me so angry. I was like, don't take this from me. Take my case, but not my CVS receipt. But making sure that they're almost tit for tat with all the things you do right professionally is just as important with re-engaging. Because a lot of the times when we look at what's just wrong, we're missing out on the things we love the most. Okay? If you're always in neuro, and you like ortho, listen, ortho, I know you're like, oh, there's ortho's fine. That's not the same. Okay, it's just not the same. But if you're always in a neuro room and you're starting to feel stuck, stagnant, frustrated, but you know you like ortho, it's not necessarily that you're stuck, stagnant, or frustrated. It's just that you're not in a space that you enjoy. So yeah, we can't all be in the room we want. Like I'm gonna be in decon every now and then. Yeah, I love answering the OR phone. I like helping you guys find the instruments that you guys need in the room, especially when you all ask for like mother-in-laws. For turkey claw, that's my favorite. It does the local tips. It's just like little turkey claw. I love it. But who what mother-in-law did that to I don't know. But being self-aware and recognizing what you like may be able something that you can pull from the list that you don't like. And now that is all done from understanding intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic kind of sounds like what it means. How are you externally motivated to move into that next phase of yourself professionally? In my career, and fortunately in my facility, if you get certified, you get a pay raise. Like, it's not enough, but we're working on it as an industry, right? I feel like that's everybody's thing, right? So extrinsic motivations are the outer drives that motivate us, the inner drives that motivate by external factors that may be beyond one's control. Okay? So these are things that we want for ourselves to supplement our lifestyles externally. And intrinsic motivations are inner drives towards an experience in which we accept responsibility for the outcome. I'm not going to lie, when I got my CHL certification, the Certified Healthcare Leader, I did that to have those letters after my name. I needed people to know that I knew how to be a healthcare leader in my profession. Okay? That's intrinsic. Right? But I needed that after my name. I had to have that. It really bothered me that I didn't have that certification for such a long time. Another intrinsic motivation. When I started in sterile processing, I was in veterinary medicine, and the surgeon loved to use a Pearson Ronger, the same one every single time. He did henny laminectomies, cervical myelopathies, and brain tumor removals on cats and dogs, and he did at least 8 a day. Same Ronger every single time. You guys know I was turning that over, right? At the time, I am dating myself, Paris and MySpace self. She flashed it. I was a veterinary assistant. Someone told me how to flash, and I repeated the same exact thing every single time. So I went into school just because I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, and I realized, oh, it's cute. And I was like, oh, and they offer health insurance. There's that extrinsic, right? So having a true grasp of that self-awareness, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, we have to look at the barriers, though. It's great that you can be intrinsically motivated to want to learn about a Pearson Ronger. You may not have the time to do that. I just had my first child 4 weeks ago, and I'm already learning that I cannot do all the things I used to do. When Frank, the only thing I want to do is sleep. Oh, okay. And so then you have extrinsic motivators, right? Like you want to get more money because you want to take care of your family. Oh, I see lots ahead. So nursing is like the chronic nurturing. I take care of people's profession, right? So you can be extrinsically motivated to want to make more money for your family, but that doesn't mean it gives you any more time for your family. And then it's like, I want to take care of my family, but hear me out, Susie, I can't go to the soccer practice. I don't know where those names come from, okay? So recognizing that there are barriers despite how much you want something, and listing them will help us become self-aware and how important it is for that aspect in our professional development. Are we getting it because we're told to get it, or are we getting it because we truly want it for our own intrinsic and extrinsic motivations? Do not take on somebody else's list of shoulds. You are not them. All right? If I listened to my parents growing up, if I listened to my parents growing up, I'd be a veterinarian by now. Maybe. I digress. So, taking on a list of other people's shoulds are really stagnant, really push you into that frustrated space because you're not personally identifying with them, then all the barriers are because of somebody else, not because of your own flaws. And I want to talk about the difference between continuous learning and lifelong learning. Because when we look at our professions, everybody's like, oh, it's a lifelong journey. That is exhausting, okay? That is so tiring. And that's because nursing doesn't necessarily have to be a lifelong learning session. No, wait a second, hold on a second. Time out a second. Sterile processing the same way. I am here to pitch the idea that lifelong learning, the process of incorporating continuously learning as an ongoing lifestyle, is just that, a bunch of cycles of continuous learning that we don't take breaks from. We're always like, on to the next one, right? Like we just got to keep it moving. No. So let's talk about how we can incorporate a style of continuous learning, the process of learning new skills on an ongoing basis in a temporary time. Temporary, okay? That means it requires a pause in between, a recognition, right? And how we can move into that with a temporary context to promote lifelong learning, not be shackled by it. All right, so here is my, again, took hours to make this. You guys saw the Venn diagram. You could only imagine how many times I said, well, Elvin, that's my husband. I was like, I don't think they're going to get this slide. I might just have to explain it to them. I was losing the battle of, oh my God, then I realized you white borders around it, forget about it. So we have, this is the cycle of continuous learning. You start to get curious, then you seek the education about what you're curious about. You get the training for it. Now you have the improvement and the maintenance. Give me a break. Because that cycle just starts right back up every single time. So let's think about something cool that you learned, or if you really like ortho, you know, you were curious about, I was curious about the rongeur, right? And get some education on it. Wow, we were doing a lot wrong in that veterinary. And I want to make sure, maybe HIPAA-esque, I don't say the name of it, but also don't allude to where it is or what state or anything like that. So what was going on? Okay. And then I got training on it. Then I realized that there was something else out there, human medicine, that we can have improvement on. And now I'm in maintenance phase of it. That was the cycle of me moving into sterile processing. What does it look like as a nurse? I'd love to give an example, but I'm not going to pretend I understand your realities. Like, I can't imagine why people become nurses. Some people do it for a family member who was sick and they promised that it would never happen again to somebody else's family member. Some people do it for the money. Nurses, in comparison to sterile processing nurses, make very, very good money. And there's a lot of upward momentum or upward movement in nursing, right? Opportunities to grow within the field, which is exciting too. But think about the last thing you learned and how this applies to that cycle. Let me give you some indications of each one though. So when you're in this curious and education phase, you might feel nervous. But what you're doing is you're finding purpose. So if you're doing something the same way you've always done it, you're starting to feel stagnant or frustrated, you're like, you know, I really like that word though. I'm gonna see what everybody's complaining about. And a lot of people are complaining about the cutting blocks in the knee, especially when it's a narrow female patient, because I can never get the bone on the corner. Thank you guys for pre-treating, I appreciate it, but it's never enough, all right? So what's happening is the reason why we're finding purpose is because we're engaging with future ideas. That's exciting. You're going to contribute to something that maybe nobody's ever thought of, or you're not going to reinvent the wheel, but you can make the wheel bigger and make it more inclusive. That's exciting. You're a little nerdy. Then you move into improvement and training. Some indication is that you start to do work for it. Maybe you go up to your manager like, hey, hear me out. I know sterile processing is always having an issue with this bone and this cutting block. I think this different. Right? And then you sync up with your nurse educator and she's like, oh, hey, you know, AORN already has a competency on it. Maybe we can introduce you. It's exciting to be impactful in that way. And then you find specific ways to do it. Now, when you're in the maintenance stage, I'm going to ask that you all celebrate it. All right, well, you guys, everybody put your dominant hand out in front of you. Take that hand and put it overhead. Accordingly. We don't take enough time to celebrate our wins. You all deserve that. And listen, like, especially in the competing social media stage where you can't just go on social media and be like, I saved someone's life today. We used to put one of those malleable hands on the wall here and just like this. That was your pat on the back, right? So seriously, celebrate this continuous cycle. This is where the pause is, folks. Okay? Take notice. Be in that routine for just a moment. For that. Yeah. Okay? I do this when I can get out the door on time. So seriously, we can do it for little things. We can do it for huge milestones as well. And this is really the foundation for kicking career fatigue out of our way, out of the department, out of the inner core, out of our operating theaters. This is that foundational aspect, self-awareness, understanding the continuous learning cycle, and really pushing past this idea that stuck, stagnant, and frustrated means that you have to hate your job, love your job, and still be stuck, frustrated. So now we get to talk about actionable steps. Okay. Now we're going to be moving into like a written exercise. I don't mind if you guys don't want to do it, but I know we don't give you books in that little bag there. So if you want to, I know you don't have paper. It's cool if you don't want to, but it's Saturday. So we're going to be discussing milestones, objectives, and visions. Now, these are the actionable steps that you can use to move out of that center of that 3-hour-long Venn diagram, right? So a milestone is the reference point in a project's life cycle, right? These are literally the processes that you're going to build out in that beginning of your continuous cycle, right? That discovery and then maybe that education aspect, right? This is where you make sure that you celebrate, you're seeing the greatness, it's going to be awesome. And then you have objectives. Objectives are the things aimed at or sought for. Now, I want to make sure that we are focusing on objectives and not goals. I know, again, they're very similar, but the reason why I like to call them objectives is because I believe objectives help you achieve goals, because goals outline the end point of a series of tasks that lead to your vision, whereas objectives are like the SOPs, right? It's like, open this, put that there, put that down, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, and then your outcome is the goal. Congratulations, you got it in. Right? And then, of course, you have your vision. This is your future-facing ambition. This is where that end cycle is. You're going to achieve all the objectives and goals that you want to. This is where we have to have strategy, because vision is 5% hope. And the rest is work, okay? Again, you don't have to wish, you don't have to hope, you have actionable steps. You guys can and should achieve everything you've ever wanted, even if it's just maintaining your sanity at work. Okay, we don't have to, not everybody needs to become president, guys, okay? We are, so it's like, not everybody needs to become president, but we do deserve to love what we're doing every single day. So this is actually a visual objective-driven goal planning. I call them career conversations. I have them with my mentees often, and this is the template that we use. I want you all to start with putting your name and today's date on the paper. Now, the reason why I put the start date and not the goal date is because where are you getting that goal date from? It's like, we should do it in 6 months. But where did you get 6 months from? Well, I don't know. I figured I'd hate myself if I didn't get it done in 6 months, so it takes 6 months, right? That's like saying, like, I'm going to get a bachelor's in 8 weeks. Okay, calm down. Calm down. All right? So put today's date. And today's date is most important than a finish date, because as you start to work on these continuous learning, there's no length of time for how long continuous learning cycles are. So by seeing the start date, you'll understand how far you've come, right? So I sit on the HSPA Board of Directors. That's a goal that I have been working on for 3.5 years. And when I looked at something like this, of course it's very wrinkly and it has tons of coffee stains on it, because that's my life. I look at the start date first. How long have I been working on this? How much have I not done so far? And I've been working on this for 2 years. I'm about 70% done. Yes, yes, the whole picture. Things like this and start date help you look at the whole picture, not just the finish line. And they say it all the time in track and field, which I used to do until I realized that you can't talk politics while running, and I learned how to play golf. I still get that. So you don't win the race in the last leg. Okay, when you're in the relay race, it's always the second and the third people that push the pace, and then that last person comes through and is fresh and crosses the finish line. Races are won the entire way, not just when you cross it. And when you cross the finish line, they don't ever just stop running, right? Once they think you're like up. And two, because they got to make sure they don't slow down when they cross it, right? So remember your start date. Two, state your why. Why do you want this? Is it somebody else's shoulds? Do you want more money? What are you intrinsically excited about? Own it. I wanted to learn about a Roger, and I needed health insurance. I was turning 23, and mom and dad were not going to let me be on health insurance anymore in the state of Connecticut. Okay? Why do you want this? The next aspect is looking at your list of resources and detailing your support. These are two different things. Often do we find that support falls into resources. So let's start with support. Support are people, not places or things. And a lot of the times we push people into the resource section instead of the support section. Who's going to support you when this isn't enough? Is it your manager? I had a great manager in one of the facilities I worked in. He's my mentor now. I loved him, and oh my God, and he never got, I was stuck on his shoe like gum. Some people would say other things, but that's okay, gotta say gum today. So and he's still stuck with me, right? The gentleman I work with, we keep bobbing in and out with each other. Like, we kind of pop in, we're like, hey, and then we disappear, and then we're like, hey. So who is your support when things get tough, or when you want to talk about how great you're doing? Remember, don't just say we're talking for like trouble stuff you are, but like, hey man, I'm going to speak AOR Connecticut chapter today. There's a bunch of nurses, I'm excited about that. Definitely talk about that, and then I definitely talk about how I sent this slide deck in with multiple spelling errors that Kristen updated for me like 4 days ago. Right? So who is your support? And your resources are places and things you need to take into consideration. So if your why is to become a nursing director, maybe you need to go back to school for that. Money, right? Have to buy books. You know, a lot of the times in nursing, you guys want to keep your books afterward because they're reference material. You know? So what do you need physically to achieve your why? And then my favorite part is I actually call this the meat and potatoes. Yes, I am Irish and everything about potatoes. So meat and potatoes are right here. Your start. Who are you today? What are you starting off as? What's your name? Be honest. No one's going to read this. I'll read it if you want to talk about it. But no one's going to read this. This is just for you. Okay? And then note how I put milestones, objectives here. You'll also note that your milestones aren't equidistant apart. And if you have OCD, I'm very sorry. This base must be true. Okay? So the reason why is because milestones can happen very quickly. Some days it just feels like Friday's right, and you're like, I get everything done. And then the next time you're like, oh my God, I haven't really done anything with my life in 8 months because I've just been studying. Right? That's okay. Because you reach your first objective. So now plot your action items with objectives. So if you want to become a nursing director, maybe the first objective is that you need to tell your manager you want to become a director. Like, how am I going to get mad that we could get a promotion and then they didn't even know we wanted it? Yeah. All right. That's also part of my I quit story. They didn't even know I wanted to be an educator. Okay, I'm just here clocking into work. Like, I'm going to be an educator. They're like, hey, you can't even educate your risk. All right. So maybe your first objective is to find a mentor. Maybe you sync up with your current nursing director. My director over sterile processing is very much a coach to me. He gives me their actionable steps on what he needs to do successfully and to pitch successfully to C-suite. Yeah, accordingly. Okay. Who knows? Maybe the first objective is that you apply for student loans. Right? Start with your objectives and then make small actionable steps that you can do to achieve them, and then celebrate every single one. Do not wait to cross the finish line until you celebrate. Right? Be your biggest fan. And eventually you will reach your vision. Okay, you can have multiple objectives, you can have multiple milestones. The only insight I try to give is that if your meat and potatoes is like 5 pages long, it kind of sounds like you have multiple professional development goals you're trying to hit, some visions, so maybe you separate them into smaller pieces. Remember, not lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is 5 pages. Continuous. So if the first one is I go to college, make that your first vision. You gotta go to like college for like 3 more years for a master's. Don't minimize all the work by trying to make its own thing. You could totally put each milestone as I didn't die during the finals. Congratulations, I did. I go to online school now, I have Nervous Magnus, and almost there for my bachelor's degree. I'm really excited. We gave it a good college try in 2008. You guys kill that. The college was great. Still. And so, making sure we understand where we're coming from. Not looking at it as lifelong, pushing it to continuous. Remember, we can't do lifelong learning effectively when we look at continuous learning cycles and give ourselves credit. Positive. And in sterile processing, we like to say we're the heart of the hospital, right? But I think it's important to recognize that nurses are a big part of their hospital and in healthcare. When you look at the job saturation rate, how many people are joining the field, more people become nurses than any other profession in healthcare. Okay? And yes, Melanie, I have the quote, like the source that I did on my reference slides. If you want to sit down, that it's right there. It's the source I didn't get. Okay. But you guys are the heart of this profession, okay? And with that, if you're the heart of this profession, that means that you're the pulse of Periop. Okay, you guys are the pulse of Periop because without any of you guys working, as we saw with COVID, nothing happens. Okay, and while you guys figure out how your voice sounds in your professional development journey, professionals like Cassandra, like Elaine, like Leah, those people that really push their kinetic chapters to help personify you, they'll be there. But God, don't let your voice not add to that. Don't be an echo in the back hallway, okay? We don't have screen closets like in kitchen where we go into the cold freezer, we're like, right? Your voice has a place in the industry, and these professionals, your chapter representatives, are waiting for you to add to theirs so that it can really resonate amongst the healthcare industry. These are those great references. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate. I can be reached on all social media outlets. My favorite is LinkedIn. Sarah B. Cruz, because it's a really popular name, and thank you for your time today.